Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, well, in keeping with the recent theme of trying to trim the fat, nearly managed to break an hour and a half on the podcast. So I'm really trimming the fat there. I don't know how I manage it. I think I need to stop talking. Anyway, we're talking about cinema, going to the cinema. Favourite subject of mine. Too much stuff. No, not that stuff. And a day trip. And that's it. That's literally it. There's a couple of TV shows. There's a movie, as you can probably guess, and a computer game. And that's it. And apparently I managed to talk for an hour and a half on those subjects. What the... you know what. Anyway, before we get started, please do think about clicking the like button, the subscribe button, share the podcast around. That's a biggie. Share the podcast around. Leave us a review. I knew there was another one. Leave us a review. Anyway, this is all getting a bit long in the tooth. Very much like this podcast. So, here we go. This is CookieCast, The Darkest Timeline. Hello, ladies and jelly spoons. I was just sat here procrastinating, as you do. It's been one of those days. Did Limp Bizkit say that? How you doing? You good? You well? You know the rules. If you are, great. If you're not, email me. What is it when you're not good, but you put it's like a big plaster with a big smile on? Because that's me at the moment. Weirdly, in the whole fat trimming of podcast exercise, which is going super well, by the way. I'm pretty sure last week's was like an hour and a half long. Not a lot to go through this week. A couple of TV things, a movie, a game, and we're out clean. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. So... I'm going to mention something and then double back to it later. The thing I'm going to mention is I went to the cinema in the last week. Honestly, at this point in my life, at this point in my week, in my day, I cannot believe that was in the last week. I went to the cinema last Tuesday. So, just about a week. Honestly, if you told me it was 3 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, it feels about right. I went to the cinema and I watched a film which I will talk about and review at some length later in the podcast. But that's not how we start things. That's how we finish things. So why am I mentioning it now? Well, the answer's simple. I want to talk about grown adult human beings who go to the cinema. I will have mentioned this before. When I was raised, brought up, however you want to phrase it, there was a series of rules that you had to follow to be able to go to the cinema. And if you didn't follow those rules, you weren't allowed to go to the cinema. And some people would say those rules were very strict. And other people would say, no, that seems right. Or, somewhere in the middle. Those rules were, you go in, you find your seat, you sit down. And when the lights go down and the film's about to start, you sit still, you keep your mouth shut, and that's that. Now, I know we're going to have the somebody kicking somebody's seat conversation. No, absolutely not. It's not about that. Few other things, few other areas to focus on. One is, before you go through those doors, make sure you go to the toilet. Now then, I am somebody who has done this. Gone to the toilet before leaving the house. Weirdly needed the toilet before going into the cinema screen. And then, halfway through the movie, being like, I need the toilet. Obviously, you just, have to hold it. And here's the absolute kicker. Not last, but time before cinema trip ago with children, I forgot to tell them to go to the toilet before we went into the cinema. And that one's coming back to bite you. And it absolutely did. So, why do I bring this up? I went to the cinema. I think I might have mentioned. And I was surprised. I don't know what you're thinking. Well, what could possibly be surprising? The number of people in that film who needed to get up and leave whilst the film was on. Now, obviously, there are a variety of different reasons for that. There could be, top of the list, number one, I need the toilet. I am 1 whole hour into this film. I need to go to the toilet. I have a family-based emergency. My phone won't stop ringing. Something's going on. I must leave the cinema to be able to answer my phone. Okay, up there, acceptable. Oh man, I forgot to buy, popcorn before coming in. The sheer volume of grown adult humans that were like, completely acceptable for me to stand up right now and walk out of this cinema screen and go and do whatever it is that I need to go and do right now, having paid anywhere between £7 and £12 to see this film. It's acceptable for me to just stand up and wander the fuck off. Do you have a tiny child bladder? I took 2 drinks into the cinema. Not little ones either. 2 large drinks into the cinema. You know why? Because I go to the toilet before I go in and work on the principle that my bladder can hold 2 large drinks in the time it takes me to watch an average length movie. If I was to take a child, I wouldn't risk it. I often roll out the waters 40 minutes into the film. That way, you only got an hour to deal with, and even a child doesn't need to go to the toilet for an hour. Then, okay, you've got up, you've gone out, you've done whatever it is, you've done your business, you've taken care of business, and you've returned. You return to your seat, you sit yourself down, get yourself comfy, back to the movie. No, that would be too simple, wouldn't it? No, you've got to come back and have a full-blown conversation at relative volume about the ins and outs of God knows what. person who was sat next to me did that one. That was a beauty. Not the only person, though. No, not the only person. And the other person wasn't the only person either. So, we've got that situation going on. What was the... There was some... literally on to what was the other thing? Can't have been that important. I'm sure. People go to the toilet. People have a conversation partway through. Oh! I know what it was. Twice in the last 2 cinema trips, I've had this situation. One, I went to find my 6 seats in the cinema and found 3 people sitting in 3 of them. And I said, excuse me, I think you might be sitting in my seats. And they said, I don't think so. What seats have you got? So, deep breath. I'm like, I've got D. This isn't D. This is E. Another deep inhale. I'm pretty sure this is D. Because, I learnt the alphabet. So said person jumps up, goes to the end of the aisle, comes back and goes, you know what, I think you're right. And promptly gets their children up and makes them move. Their children were not happy about this. And I went, maybe you could teach your parent how to do the alphabet. And that was that. Now here's the thing. If you're in row D, or in fact E, there's a little trick I like to use. It's real tricky, but if you can't do letters, can you do numbers? So if A is 1 and B is 2, C is 3 and D is 4, if you're supposed to be in E and you're 4 rows back, chances are you're on the wrong row. Capiche? Okay, let's try this one again. So, I booked the tickets for the film, and I booked them in a particular way. I booked them so there would be, at the least, a spare seat one side of us. And that way, I knew that nobody would be able to sit in that seat because of the way the other seats were already booked. So I just left a seat, booked 2 seats. So on the chance nobody was booking that seat because not a one person is going to go. So when 2 fully grown human adults come romping up and sit down next to us, I go, I can see how this one's going to go because, spoilers, one of you's sitting in someone else's seat. And I know that one for a fact. These are the right seats, aren't they? Yeah, these are right, yeah. Yeah, because we're supposed to be in E, and it's like, this is E. I'm like... And it's at points like this that I feel like saying, gents, just real quick, if A is 1 and B is 2, you get my drift. If, let's say, you're not sure. Let's say you get there and you're like, I'm not sure. I think this is my row. I was supposed to be on row D, let's say. I wonder if there's another way I could check. If A is 1 and B is 2, there is a part of me that goes, that was a load of complaining about a load of stuff that didn't really matter. But I'm pretty sure I spoke about it at the time. Like a couple of times I've been to see Bill Burr. Same venue in Manchester. And I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen like hundreds of grown human adults who just get up in the middle of something they've paid for and just wander around. It's like, why not cut out the middleman and not bother? Why don't you, stay at home or do the thing that you wanted to do by going to a pub? Because clearly you're more interested in the drinking than the event you came to. Maybe it's a level of convenience that I don't understand. Maybe it's just because there's a part of me that wants to go. The simple answer is it's entitlement. It's another example of where we are at this point in time. Everybody's entitled to do whatever they want, whenever they want. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I'm going to talk some real first world problems right now. I have reached a point in my life where I have had to admit some sort of defeat. That defeat is this. I've had to say there is too much stuff. No, not in my overcrowded house. I just mean there was a point where I looked at my podcast backlog and I went, I don't think I can physically listen to all the podcasts I've got to listen to in the time frame I've got to listen to them. And that's not like I've got to have it done by a certain point in time. That is largely, although for some things that does apply, that is largely to do with the fact that the release schedule for some of the podcasts I listen to are 2 a week. That one alone is practically a full-time job listening to in the time scale of time I've listened to podcasts. It got to the point where I was like, I might have to cut out a podcast. And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, which would be the one to go? I was like, if I'm honest, there's probably one that springs to mind, purely because it's fairly in its infancy. And when I first started to listen to it, it was like all the guests that were on were famous people, famous comedians, in fact. And I went, yeah, this is absolutely for me. I feel the host has probably burnt through all the famous comedians they know and is now just putting people you've never heard of on. And honestly, when I was listening to it going, I want to hear what this person has to say on this subject matter. Bing, bang, boom. Do I want to listen to somebody that's... I don't know them? Do I want their opinion on that subject? But then I realised I listened to it not because of the other person's answers to the questions. I listened to it to think about how I would answer the questions. So even that one probably couldn't get cut. So then I was like, right, I know what to do. I started listening to audiobooks when I'd basically run out of podcasts. I was listening to podcasts too much and reached a point where I had to say, I need something to break up the podcast listening. So I introduced audiobooks and rattled through a series of audiobooks. Now, the deal is I'm only allowed to listen to an audiobook if I've read the book, because otherwise I consider it to be cheating. It's one of those, as like sort of ins and outs. One, you can buy the audiobook of a book you own cheaper and things like that. So I was like, okay, here's the plan. I'm just about to finish my latest audiobook. I won't start a new audiobook. There is no time frame on audiobooks. I'll knock audiobooks on the head. And instead, I'll use that audiobook listening to time, when I'm walking the dog, to double, triple, in some cases, my podcast listening. Bing, bang, boom. I've added an hour of podcast listening a day. We can do this. And honestly, I have absolutely cut through my backlog. I had something like 30 podcasts queued, ready to rock and roll. And up until today, where I did have to add a few to the old backlog, I had 1, 2, 3 left. I am now back up to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16, and believe me, that ain't even scratching the surface. So, audiobooks are out, podcasts are well and truly in, job done. No, not job done. I absolutely rinsed the Steam sale. My Steam library looks like a man who's got a lot of money and a lot of time. I have neither of those things. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say 7. Just to be whatever. Let's say 7 PlayStation 5 games in a backlog. Okay? And let's talk about Meta Quest games, not PC VR. We ain't there yet, kids. Meta Quest games, I think. So, I'm going to say 5, but I also downloaded a series of trials for games. So there's about another 5 of those, which I haven't even looked at. And the best bit is that there's a game I actually want on the Quest, because apparently we've hit a point in time where all of these people are like, hey, this comes out in 2024. All of them realised it's August. And apparently releasing in 2024 means you actually have to do it at some point. So the games are getting chucked out left, right and centre. Early is the other thing, which is odd. I keep seeing these, here's what the back end of 2024 looks like, either videos or articles or whatever. And I give some of them a glance, and a few of them, like if it's a video, I click through the video just to see what they say is coming out of any interest. And sometimes I get genuine sort of like, I don't want to use that word because I hate that word, but and I don't want to make it sound like I'm having a heart attack when I say it, but I get a bit flustered. There we go, flustered will do. When I read through these things and go, oh shit, man, some of those games are like must-play games. The flipping hell am I going to do? So, got this massive Steam backlog, and had a conversation with Edward Dench the other day. I said, Edward, I've got this going on with Steam and that going on with Steam. And he said, honestly, I think you need to put a game buying embargo on. I said, you're right, and that's what I have done. That's what I did, and you are correct, and I did it. He's like, good. I was like, yeah, I bought 27 games last night. He laughed, and at one point I think he thought I was joking. I wasn't joking, and I'm not exaggerating. I bought 27 games. 19 of them were the same franchise. This was the point where he decided to tell me that he thought I had a problem, and I fully agreed. I've been considering going back to, collecting, action figures. We don't call them action figures, they're collectibles. Masks, something that's just not this endless backlog of computer games. Anyway, so I started reading a book. I know, that joke will never get old. I started reading a book. It was a sample of a book that I've wanted to that I've kind of wanted to read for a while. And I had to stop reading the sample because the sample wasn't giving me any of the book, because I had a backlog of books that I needed to read. Later in this podcast, we will talk about the 2 TV series that I have watched in the last week. And that doesn't even scratch the surface of TV-based stuff. There was a stand-up special that came out that I can't talk about because I haven't finished watching it. I've watched half of it. And there was also a new TV series released that I started watching, but it had 3 adverts in it, and I nearly lost my fucking shit. Movies. You want to talk movies? I've got a mental list of movies that I'm eventually going to pick up when they either come down in price, or I need a decent Saturday night movie to put on and watch. So I'll, roll the dice on a film that's, £10. There was a sale a little while ago, and I bought 5 films in the sale. Somebody right now is listening to this and going, I think I can see the problem. The problem is too much money and not enough time. But as I said before, it's no money and no time. And yes, I know if I didn't buy all these things, then maybe I'd have some money, but it's not even like that. I'm talking, I bought a film the other day that cost me 89 pence. It's probably cost me 89 pence to record this podcast so far. I've got all the lights on. So you know what I mean. 89 pence wasn't breaking the bank. But you might have got exhausted listening to my list. Can you imagine a scenario where that is what's in front of you? And when we get to the back end of this podcast and I talk about the one computer game I've played this week, we could talk about the one book I'm reading, the one, I did watch 2 TV series, but that'll all become clear as well. And, the one movie I watched this week. Technically, I have watched 2 films this week, but I decided to not talk about the second one because it was an animated movie me and my eldest daughter watched. And I went, nobody wants to hear about this. So, there. Trimming the fat, kids. Trimming the fat. When I said it was a first world problem kind of thing, it really is a first world problem kind of thing. I look back over my life and try and pinpoint times in my life where I will have said the phrase, I'm bored. Oh man, I'm bored. I look at my children sometimes and I think, I wonder if they're ever bored. I wonder if they ever have the opportunity to be bored. I honestly think that, my children at this point in time are, when you're 18, 19, 20 and you're just burning the candle at both ends, non-stop. You're up, you're out, you're partying hard, you're doing whatever. You don't get to bed till 4, then you're up for work at, 8, out the door, getting it done, all of that. Just, like a wheeling and dealing, jucking and jiving, that kind of thing. I imagine my children are like that at this point. Nobody sleeps in. Everybody's up at 6. Even, like, my son started thinking that 6 is a lion at this point. So he kicks the ball off at, like, it was 5:30 the other day. He was like, "Yep, I'm done. I'm done with the sleeping. Like, I hope you are too." I was like, "I'm not, but Leanna is, because she's not here." So there's that. Then, like, my middle daughter had got up, showered, got dressed, and was ready to rock and roll at like 7 this morning. My youngest daughter, I think my youngest daughter was up before her. And then my eldest just surfaces whenever. So I often think, do you ever have the opportunity to be bored? I'd love one of them to come to me and be like, "Dad, I'm bored." I'd be like, "Good. Enjoy it while it lasts, before you get sucked into a world where there's just too much stuff." And honestly, I understand. You know, part of me wants to do some sort of like, well, this is where society's got to, consumerism and all that. But somebody commented on a podcast a little while ago and said, "Man, this guy really hates adverts." And I responded, or the podcast responded, however you want to look at it, and said, "Yeah, you're right there. I do." I think the message gets lost. I always say, I hate adverts because you can't sell me anything. I am the truest definition of a consumer. Put some flashing lights on it and some buttons and I'll buy it, no matter what it is. You can't. I have never seen an advert and gone, "That looks good." And I know you could argue, well, a film trailer is an advert. Yeah, it is. But honestly, I could go and watch a film without seeing a trailer for it. No dramas. I've even reached a point now, the film I'm going to talk about in a little while, as proper cemented for me the fact that I don't think I need to watch trailers anymore. We'll come on to that. I get it. It's a hard thing to explain. I understand the first world problem side of it, where I'm saying there are too many games, there are too many movies, there are too many podcasts, there are too many books, there are too many whatever. Woe is me, isn't this awful, isn't this terrible, etc. But how do I get my point across on this? The point that I'm trying to sort of drive home here is, it is too much. It's, like, this gets ruined by that because this was released at that point in time and that never had the chance to breathe or grow or whatever. And I think, like, me and Leanne keep talking to my eldest over the last few days about Jurassic Park. And I think I know, and I think she knows that, I think Leanne, not my eldest, that we can't get across to her what a monumental thing that film was. Every part of it, every fibre of it. I saw that film 6 times at the cinema. I owned the soundtrack. I listened to it constantly. I could not believe that film existed. And my eldest is like, "It's dinosaurs." I'm like, you can't comprehend what that film meant to us. I keep trying to convince her to watch the 1989 Batman film, because to me, as I always say to her, there'd be no DC movies, there'd be no Marvel movies, there'd be no superheroes at all if it wasn't for this film. And you should watch it for the historical relevance alone. You should just watch it for that reason alone. Just to appreciate the fact that without this film, you wouldn't be able to sit down and watch Marvel Avengers 20 or whatever. But she just doesn't get it, and she just doesn't care. She's a Superman fan, and she thinks Batman's lame. Yet, last night we watched a film where Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman were all in it together. And my point is, if Batman's that lame, how is it that he's managed to go up, not against, but with Superman and Wonder Woman? But hey, I'm a Batman fan. Let's move on. I know, trim the fat. Let's move on. We went for a day out. It's the kind of thing we do often. This summer holidays, the sort of mantra, message, none of that's feeling right. I can't think of the sort of what I said was, I don't want us to just go and do the same stuff over again. We always go and play mini golf. We always go bowling. We always go to the cinema. We always do, Let's not. Let's do new things. Let's do them. Leanne's found like these websites where you can get like cheap tickets and stuff. So she's been like rinsing those. Like, I can get 9 tickets for this place, and it'll cost us 85 pence. And it's like, it's like, cool, buy them all and let's roll. So she's like, I found this place. I'm like, cool. She's like, I can get us some cheap tickets. I'm like, cool. So it is like an hour away. I'm like, okay. She's like, but it sounds good. It's like a mixture of all the sorts of places we go to. There's like a walk, there's some woods, but there's also like animals and birds and like bird like flying display type things. And they've got a park and a cafe, tea room sort of thing. And I was like, honestly, that sounds perfect for the sort of thing that we like to do. So, we took our children and we went to Thorpe Harrow. It was all this stuff about, don't put the postcode in for where it is. Put a different postcode in because that'll get you there. Instantly, I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. What? Why? Oh, loads of people have said, do this. I saw it on a website, and my friend told me this, and go this way, and take this turning, and do this. I was like, okay, but if they want people to find them, should they not have that on their website? And then I think there was some mention of that it actually is on their website. Like they have said, if you want to find us, don't use our postcode. Like, that's just confusing. It was an hour's drive. I think that was it. I don't think it was overly... noises. I don't think it was overly eventful, the drive. At this point in time, I'm struggling to remember my own name. Oh, catfight. Catfight. Yeah, catfight. Cool. So we went, and it was one of these, you pull in, car park, done. We go, we were like, hey, we've got these tickets. They were like, yeah, those tickets have already been used. Okay. They're like, go on in. Like, okay then. So in we go. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there was a thing about this. They gave us a map and it was like a big place and stuff. I was like, I'm pretty sure there was a thing about this, that these woods, because the main sort of, the bulk of it is just all these woods. But the point of the woods is that none of the trees, no, the trees next to each other aren't the same. They're different types of trees. And again, I was talking to my eldest and I was like, you don't think that's mental? Stuff like this fascinates me. It's like, look at that tree. Look how big it is. Look how, so you wouldn't be able to get your arms around it. Like, I wouldn't be able to get my arms around it. Nobody getting their arms around that tree. It's massive. It's got this huge trunk. It's humongous. It goes all the way up into the sky. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, look at the tree next to it. It is completely different. It is a completely different tree. She's like, yeah. Like, okay. Well, think about this. Somebody a long time ago went, I'm going to plant this tree here and that tree there as saplings, because in 100 years or something, that tree is going to be freaking huge. And the tree next to it is going to be freaking huge and completely different. Anyway, we go through the woods. I enjoyed that. I thought that was nice. I've already made it sound like I'm going to say I didn't enjoy it. That's not true. We walked through the woods, and I was like, look at this one. I was like, look at that one. It's all like, twisty, and like there's like trees that are like twisted and stuff. Awesome. We get to a point, I'm like, oh look, there's like a stately home down there. And according to the map, there's some like water and stuff. Variety of different statues on the grounds, etc. We work our way down to where the bird section is and the mammals, and it's literally the other end to the entrance. It is the furthest point away. So, as you can imagine, it takes a little bit of time. A couple of stops off on the way. We went past the park. You can imagine what that was like with 4 kids when you go in. No, we'll come back to the park. So, we had a look around. They had a bit of a run around, a roll around at one point. And we find the birds and the mammals, next to which is a picnic area. Perfect, because it's lunchtime. In the picnic area were some chickens. I got like totally taken in by this chicken. It was like a fluffy chicken. But I kept saying to like all the kids and stuff, I was like, look at it. It's got like little furry slippers on. Like the way it's like, not even fur, it's like feathers, isn't it? Like round its feet. It made it look like it had like giant furry slippers on. And I thought it was hilarious. And there was a baby one as well. And I thought that was hilarious. And the next thing, they're in and around the table. And I was a bit like, I want to stroke one, but I don't want to lose a hand, because I think that they can sort of like instinctively peck you. And I saw a video once that said, don't forget, chickens are essentially dinosaurs. And it was a cat chasing a mouse badly. And a chicken was like, Jesus, let me show you how it's actually done. And it shredded this mouse. And it was one of those where I was like, whoa. Next thing, my middle daughter's laughing her head off. I'm like, what? She's like, that chicken took my sandwich. Like, eh? And all these chickens like going mental for this bit of sandwich. I was like, yeah, that's funny. Next thing, she's stroking the chicken. Not. That was badly worded. Although right now I can't think of another. The chicken that was there, she stroked the feathers of. Jesus. We'd also timed it so that we could go to a flying display. So we went and found some seats after lunch, and they brought out some birds. A couple of caracaras. Funny story about those guys. Tried to repopulate the caracara population in the world. So they got these 2 caracaras, and they were like right, let's get to populating. And they couldn't work out why they weren't getting fertilised eggs. Like, what the hell's going on here? So they decided to do a bit of digging on that one. Turns out, little did they know, little did I know, apparently you don't get eggs from two boys. Yeah. And then there was a vulture situation. It's like, cool. I'm sorry. Not an attractive bird. And then my son started kicking off and I had to take him to the gift shop. So I missed the rest of the flying display, but then all the children and Leanne turned up and we went through the gift shop. Gift shop, reasonably priced. Honestly, didn't want to say this to the kids, but if they'd have actually said, can I have something? I'd have said yes. Because there were some cool things in the gift shop and it was reasonably priced. However, it's a day trip, isn't it? Day out. And we all know what makes a good day out. That's right, it's an ice cream. And luckily for us, some of us, it's time to get some ice creams. So, pick your ice cream, don't get it out before you pick it, make sure you know which one you're having, get the one you want, blah, 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 blah. I'm having this one. My eldest managed to get the only one of one of the ones they had. Right, cool. Middle two, more often than not, will get the same. My son will have like a little ice cream, smaller ice cream. Leanne got an ice cream. I don't eat on a Sunday, so nothing for the big man. We go to the thing, I was like, we've got one of these, we've got two of these, we've got one of those, and we'll take some food for the animals, because we're off to the mammal centre next. And the lady was like, okay, cool, that's 20 quid. And I didn't bat an eyelid at this. 5 ice creams, bit of animal food. I didn't know what to expect. As I'm handing over as I'm about to beep my phone to pay, Leon's like, why was that so expensive? And me being me, you know, the big, strong, manly alpha male that I am, was like, I don't know. Like, don't make a big deal of it. I don't want to have to deal with this. The woman didn't say anything. I was like, meh. We walk out. Leon's like, why was that so expensive? Like, what do you mean? She was like, 5 ice creams and some food. The food was 75p. You just paid short 20 quid. Quick maths says these ice creams were more expensive than they were advertised. Right. Oh, okay. That's cool. Up till that point, I didn't think about it. I didn't bat an eyelid. Terrible money management right there. After that, at every single available opportunity, I was like, well, hey, look at it this way. At least it cost me 20 quid for ice creams. Anyway, off we go to the mammals. The mammals were probably the more lacking part, I will say. They had 3 meerkats. Some wallabies who were probably done with wallaby food for the day. They were just very much like, yeah, leave us alone. It's nappy nap time, please. And some goats. And the beautiful thing about feeding goats is one goat gets all the food and the others just look at you like, what is it that we ever did wrong in life? So, you know, there's an experience for you. And that was it as far as the mammals were concerned. And I was a bit like, heh. Obviously, time's ticking, so off we go to the park. Park was reasonable, very much reasonable. I let them sort of go about their devices. Honorary shout out for the tiny little lad who was going up this huge climbing thing that was made of wood. And at one point I was like, is it a dinosaur? And I was like, no. I was like, is it supposed to be like a pirate ship? I was like, honestly, I don't know what this is. It's cool. But yeah, I'm flummoxed. He was going up what to me was like a dinosaur's tail, but whatever. And he was super chatty. And he was just talking to me and was just telling me all about what he was doing and like giving like a running commentary and was super engaging. And his dad was there and his dad was like, oh yeah. And he went off up this thing and I turned to his dad and I was like, well, he's a character. His dad's like, yep. I was like, he's brilliant. And he was, I would say it was probably, like, height-wise and stuff, I'd say it was probably the same age as my son. Verbally, like, he was, yeah, probably a couple of years older because, wow, chatterbox. So, yeah, big shout-out to the little guy. He was hilarious. Genius. And that was kind of that, really. We up sticks after a bit of time in the park. Headed back. There was talk about coffee, stuff like that. I was like, let's just get in the car and go. Which we did. And we came home. Very much one of those situations. The situation was this. We got discount tickets. And because it was discounted, we paid, I think, half of the price. And half of the price was fine. The journey there was okay. The journey back was okay. Honestly, at this point in time, I can't remember anything that really stood out as far as the journey is concerned. It was long for little people. You know, an hour's probably pushing it. Although we did an hour journey today that was more like 2 hours and freaking normal. I was going to do this whole thing on the podcast today about going to the beach and how when does something reach a point where it's just not feasible? Do you want to spend 2 hours doing a 1 hour journey? If the answer is yes, maybe you should consider going to the beach. If the answer is no, well, looks like you ain't going to the beach. Do you have it in your head that, hey, it's not going to cost too much money to go to the beach, he says to Leanne a few days ago. It's just be an ice cream each. Don't even have to worry about chips because nobody has chips anymore. We'll take a pack up. Ice cream each, no drinks. We're going to take drinks with us. And I don't know, let's say it's £20 for all of the arcade machines they could ever possibly want to go on. One of my children announced today, I'm not really bothered about going in the arcades. I was like, oh, that's going to make things interesting, isn't it? Seemed to change their tune when we got in there, weirdly. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. Today was so freaking expensive. I knew I was off to a bad start because it cost me £10 to walk away from the car. And I was like, why is that an acceptable thing to pay £10? Knowing full well that at certain times of the year you don't have to pay at all. So it's like, are you just trying to recoup the money from that time of year? Oh man, that one stung. And then it's like, oh, let's go and get some ice creams, but let's apparently go to the expensive ice cream place. The ice creams weren't all that expensive. But when you're dropping tens and, more like 20s in arcades, and then you go to a shop and people decide they want this, that and the other, and next thing you're like, pretty sure this cost me 60 quid for, what I said was going to be an ice cream each. Anyway, that's not even what I was talking about. I got the opportunity to sit in shitloads of traffic on the way home, so, big thumbs up on that one. Not what I'm here to talk about. Anyway, Thought Pero. absolutely a top-notch day out. Absolutely, probably won't go again. Absolutely, probably. There's a sentence for you. If I had to pay full price, definitely wouldn't go. It's as simple as that. Pure reason of going was because of getting it half price. Outside of that, it wasn't worth the money. And do you know something? That's happened a few times recently. We've been getting these half price tickets here, or pay for a family ticket, get it like money off, and you can have these other tickets for free or whatever. And the general consensus has been that place was cool. I really enjoyed going there. I absolutely will not be going again because I'll have to pay full price. Just listening to my cat, presumably jumping into the kitchen. It's his new pastime. His new pastime is coming into the kitchen when he knows the dog's asleep, because he knows the dog won't bother him. I find it hilarious. Right, let's talk about TV. I've got quite a bit of TV, but I'm gonna gloss over some of it, and I'm gonna probably gloss over some other stuff. I have watched episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I know. Of 9 episodes of Tulsa King. I've got the finale left, season 1 final finale, whatever. And I am looking forward to it. I have thoroughly enjoyed this series. I'm hopeful for the last episode. Ideally, I don't want to be disappointed. And I know, having seen a little clip the other day, that our season 2 is just around the corner. Very much looking forward to that. No real downsides. A downside. Sorry, a little interlude while I go and find out what it is that my cat is doing, because it sounded very much like he'd managed to get into the cat biscuits. I cannot confirm nor deny whether that is true. Episode 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are a couple of mini gripes with it as a series, but honestly, something, and this will come up again later when I talk about the film that I went to see. Something that I've sort of noticed recently is, if I can say at the end, I enjoyed that. I found that I'm prepared to let the little things go, like, oh, that little thing there that would put me off normally, today I'm not bothered about. There are some characters I really don't like in the series. The head of the mafia, it's like, yep, you're a bit of a dick. It's like, but you're supposed to be. That's the point. That's part of the story. Like some of his cronies, I guess, they're also dicks. It's that kind of thing. One of the characters they've had in this series is just weird. I honestly thought they were going to have this character for quite some time, and in the last couple of episodes they've sort of changed this character. He's like a bad guy, but he seemed like cool, calm and collected, and now he's just very much like generic bad guy. He's like, oh, he's snorting coke and doing hits and stuff like that. Really didn't feel like his character throughout up till this point. I've got an idea how I think the last episode's going to go. And honestly, if it goes that way, I will be jumping for joy, because that will be chef's kiss. Problem being is, if it doesn't go that way and it goes a different way, will I be disappointed? So far, it has been good. I have really enjoyed the series. Largely, I paid money for the series, so that was an aspect. I buy stuff these days, work on the principle that hopefully it'll be good if it's something I haven't seen. I saw many clips and trailers and advert type things. Yes, I know. And everything I saw about it just made me want to watch it. So I was like, I'm going to roll the dice on this. I think I paid £10 for 9 episodes. And I'm just like, by this point, I consider that to be a bit of a bargain. So yeah, there we go. I'm going to talk about the last episode of Series 3 of The Bear in 1 second. I have to go back and check what it is my cat is doing. I think he's eating biscuits. I honestly think he's eating biscuits, but I don't know how he's getting them. I wouldn't put it past him to have cut a hole in the bag and be individually pulling them out one by one. Because, yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. But then there'd be a hole in the bag, and presumably all the biscuits would fall out. This is the man who will find the hole in the bag and a load of biscuits on the floor at some point. He's definitely eating something. That's either... Well, no, that is nothing but a bad thing. Anyway, finally summed up the courage to watch the last episode of Series 3 of The Bear. In a world where I'm trying not to be negative about stuff, there is nothing but negativity for the Series 3 of The Bear. It had pretty bad reviews. A lot of people were very outspoken about it. They were like, you have ruined this show. You have ruined a show that I've loved for 2 series. This was the best TV show, and now it's not. You need to address this. All this sort of stuff. I didn't believe that it was true. Series 3 has not been good. There has been a good episode, but good might be a stretch of the word. This episode was all centered around a restaurant that a lot of them have worked in closing. That might be a spoiler, by the way. Sorry. And them going for a meal. And very much like the rest of the series, not a lot happened. Something I will say. There's a bit where Kami confronts his nemesis. For you community fans out there, you may recognise him. And he's like, he says all of this stuff to him. He finally confronts him. He's like, you were mean to me and you hurt my feelings. And the guy's like, and? He's like, well, then, you know, that's not okay. He's like, why not? Like, because it's not. He's like, but you were an okay chef and now you're a good chef. When you left, you were good, but you weren't when you came. And I was saying to Lan, I was like, I've seen a little bit of the Olympics and watching like people in the Olympics who, you know, they are at their absolute height of their game. And somebody that takes gold in the Olympics, 99.9% of people out there in the world cannot comprehend the level of training and dedication that person's had to go to. And I was talking about the film Whiplash. I was then talking about The Bear and saying people can't comprehend what it takes to be great. To be truly great, you essentially have to sacrifice everything. I've seen this thing about, you know, to be great, you have to, you know, look at when your friends are going to the bar and they're having a drink. you're in the gym doing whatever. And the gym can be, you know, any sort of gym, really. So I could fully understand that statement that, you know, when you started you were not good, and when you ended you were great, kind of thing. But I also get that nobody else really gets that, or a lot of people don't really get that. I probably understand it from a mental standpoint, but obviously, you know, through my own actions, don't understand it in other ways. Series 3 of The Bear was not good. Probably in the, you know, out of 10 it'd be a 4. They really need to right the boat. They really need to get back to what made this show great. And if they can't, then they probably need to not do it. Because it was one of those scenarios where not doing it would have hands down been better than doing it. Real shame. You know, I didn't want to give a bad review to something that I really enjoyed, but sometimes you just have to call it as it lies, really. Okay, the movie that I have alluded to, and one that I will be using the same principle of what I was just talking about. I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine. I had 2 conversations before going to the cinema. One was, do you think you'll go and see Deadpool and Wolverine at the cinema? And I said, I really should. In my head, I was like, but I don't think I will. Problem you've got is anything like that, it will be on Disney in, 6 weeks' time. In some cases. So it's just not worth the trip to the cinema. I refer you back to all the stuff I said about going to the cinema. Then I had another conversation about seeing Deadpool and Wolverine at the cinema, and that was, do you want to go and see Deadpool and Wolverine next week at the cinema? And I said, sure. So that was that. I want to get something out of the way quite early on, and I want to talk about the reason why I've made a decision about trailers going forward. Somebody said to me the other day, I asked a question that related to Deadpool and Wolverine, having said, I'm sorry I was unavailable at that point in time. I was at the cinema seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. A little bit of back and forth, how was it? Was it good? And I was like, ultimately, the answer is yes, it was. I then asked a question, and the response I got back was, no spoilers, in capital letters. I had no spoilers going into that film. I knew everything about it. Leanne said to me, are you excited to go and see your film this evening? And my response was, well, I've basically already seen it, so not overly. Through the trailers that Marvel have released, through the stuff that Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman and everybody else have put out over social media, through the interviews that cameo actors have done to talk about their role in the film, and little snippets here, there and everywhere, I had basically seen that entire film before stepping foot into the cinema, and I wasn't even looking. And I felt like saying to the person that said no spoilers, honestly, if you've seen a trailer for this film, there are no spoilers. You've seen the film. So there was that. I saw a review for it that said you very much feel like Disney wanted to tout the fact that it was their first R-rated movie whilst bringing it under the wire Bearing in mind, in this country, it is not an 18, which I didn't realise. It's actually a 15 in this country. But I'm pretty sure the other two were as well. So, few sort of things here and there. One, we've got all these characters that we've had in the first one and the second one, and they've returned. Yes, sirree, Bob. But we managed to convince Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine, so we don't need any of those characters. Get rid of them immediately. No, they don't all get killed off. They are in it at the beginning. Oh, we managed to secure all these actors to play the roles they've played in previous films in our movie. Cool, let's do that then. There was a thing about them pulling punches with jokes. And I was like, really, how can you tell? And then I watched the film and went, yep, I can absolutely see what you mean there. There are jokes that just don't go very far. And a big criticism I had for the movie was, in the first one, it was Deadpool. And in the second one, it was Deadpool. And in the third one, it was Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. And that felt weird. The jokes weren't Deadpool jokes, they were Ryan Reynolds jokes. The jokes weren't Wolverine jokes, they were Hugh Jackman jokes. They were jokes about the actors. And that was too meta. Like, we're not here to see Ryan Reynolds, we're here to see Deadpool. We're not here to see Hugh Jackman, we're here to see Wolverine. These are the actors that play these characters. Ryan Reynolds doesn't have fucked up skin and a healing ability. So, yeah, what exactly are we doing here? That was something that really stood out for me. What were some of the other things? Here's what X people, not X-Men, X number of people are going to complain about for this joke. We're going to preempt their complaint and then make a joke about it. For every single joke. Every time they made a joke that they knew was going to get pulled up, they then doubled down by making another joke about the fact they were going to get pulled up on it. Every time. To the point where it became quite annoying. It's like, oh, here's a joke, but we know you're going to find it offensive, so we've done another joke over the top to make it less offensive. Let's all laugh together. Now then, you're like, hey, hang on a minute. You said you weren't going to be mean. I'm not going to be mean. I had to take my final answer on this one. I was going to walk away from the film and say, here's all the things that I didn't like about it. It was a solid 6 out of 10. There you go. And it was a solid 6 out of 10. It was also a 7 out of 10. And it was also an 8 out of 10. Why? Because at various points I felt various different things. When a big group of people turned up, let's just leave that there. The part of me that loves comic books went, fuck yeah. The part of me that may have criticised something else already in this review was like, for fuck's sake. It was that, the movie. When a certain collection of actors turned up reprising roles they may have played previously, I went, minutes later I was like, fuck yeah, this is kick-ass. You know when you didn't realise how much you wanted to see somebody back in a role, and then they come back in that role and you're like, fuck yeah. That happened. They did a comic book / cartoon accurate version of a character, and it was phenomenal. Hands down deserves its own movie. Just going to say that. But of all the possible criticisms I could give you, and believe me, happily would, I decided towards the back end of the film I needed to think about how I felt leaving the cinema. It was ups and downs and a roller coaster ride, and I've highlighted a few things with a few people that I know who haven't seen it, and I'm like, this was really cool, this was awesome, I really enjoyed this, etc. But I had to take how I felt about the end, how I walked away from it. And as the end was coming, I went, I am going to hate the end of this film. I am going to hate the end of this film because I can see it coming from a fucking mile away. And the end came and I went, that is damn cool. And then we got another type of ending and I went, how's this one going to go? And it was fine. And I went, that is cool as well. And then roll credits. And there was an after credit scene. In case you didn't know, you have to stay till the very end. And I said, I really enjoyed that film. It was really good. It is hands down a 6, 7, and 8 out of 10. All at the same time. Honestly, if you came to me and went, I hated that film, I'm like, yep, I get you. I feel you. If you came to me and you're like, that film was okay, it had its good points, it had its bad points, I'd be like, yeah, I'm down. And if you said, that film is the best film of this year, I'd be like, you might be right. But I walked away from it. I was glad I went to see it. I was glad that I saw it. And honestly, I was like, yeah, it was a good film. I enjoyed it. Will say this, there's another one of those where it helps if you've seen the TV series, and I haven't. So there was a couple of things that I was a bit like, I don't know what this is. So yeah. Deadpool and Wolverine, worth a watch. Finally, as I'm sure from earlier when I was saying there's far too much stuff to be going on with, you may have caught the fact that I said I've only been playing one game. And again, we fall into our category of I don't want to be negative. And the reason I don't want to be negative is because this game is in early access. That's right. The game in question is Into the Radius 2. Man, I hate this fucking game. Nah, that's not true. Sometimes I do fucking hate it. Like last night, where I reached a point where I said, I want to turn this off. And I did. I turned it off. I was surprised at myself. It was nearly bedtime. I turned the game off and I said, I might not go back to that. And I genuinely meant it. Into the Radius 2 has had its first official patch. And like any first official patch, it genuinely fucked the game in a whole host of new ways. Stuff that they said were fixed in the patch absolutely are not and are worse now. Thank you very much for the fact that I lost my backup gun. Just, because there is this thing, this blinky, jittery thing when you die and reload and when it loads that feels like it's giving you a migraine. And honestly, the game is so difficult. Some of my saves are seconds apart. That is no joke. At one point, I had 3 saves that were 9 hours and 11 minutes. And the only way I could work out which was the one that I was supposed to be using was by looking at how many seconds they were apart. It is so insanely difficult. I cannot begin to tell you. It feels like a Souls game. That's not a joke. It genuinely feels like a Souls game. It feels like I have to save every few steps. And that is also not a joke. There was a point I was playing last night that I took 3 steps in a particular direction and saved the game again. I have reached a point that so far I've had a mission where I've had to basically bail on it because I just could not work out how to do it. And all it was go to an area and pick up a thing. The area is surrounded by anomalies that will blow you to kingdom come. Not in a good way. I have got another mission, a main story mission, which is going to reward me with some goody goods. And as of turning it off last night, I physically could not find a way to do it. So, yes. Here's how bad it is. I considered buying another game, another VR game, purely so I can play that instead, in the hope that by the time I come back to Into the Radius 2, they've patched it again and it's ever so slightly more fixed than it is now. And I really wish they'd put a difficulty setting in because, my God, that game is fucking difficult. There's never enough stuff. Into the Radius was a survival horror game. The survival horror aspect was negated by the fact that you could physically buy almost every single item you needed in the game. Almost. The only thing I found that you couldn't buy was an extended shotgun magazine. And Into the Radius 2, you can buy almost none of the stuff you need. And even at the point in time that you get a real good sort of stockpile of stuff, you will absolutely rattle through all of it in a very short space of time. You go through ammo like you are pissing. You go through health items like you are breathing. It is so insanely difficult with so many bugs that, yes, it's early access, so you're not allowed to say bad things about it, but fuck a duck, it is hard for so many different reasons. I have poured so many hours into this game purely reloading the last thing I did. Whether it's because I died, or because it went wrong, or because I used too many items, or because I've lost too much ammo, or because the game loaded and I was missing all of my weapons. The game loaded and my ammo was gone. Yes, it is early access, and yes, I knew what I was signing up for. The game's not going to be brilliant. It's not going to be polished. It's not finished, etc., etc. I saw a video the other day where somebody was talking about the fact that they're planning these big updates and it's going to have more content, and people are talking about mods and blah, 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 blah. I wish somebody could just tell me how to deal with the anomalies. Into the Radius 1, I played the entire game multiple times, and in the end, I had to Google how to deal with electric anomalies. And it was really easy. You throw a probe, it shows you where the electric anomaly is, and you then avoid that area. I need that for all anomalies in this game. I don't get it. It will send you to sections where there are just anomalies everywhere and say, go and find a thing. Good luck. What it means by that is you ain't going to stand a chance. There's going to be 30 fucking enemies with a multitude of different levels of weaponry, armour, all possible combinations. This guy's got a shotgun, but he's also armoured up to the gills. This guy's got a heavy machine gun. He's also got armour. What have you got, dickhead? Oh, that's right, a handgun. Because guess what? They haven't unlocked the sniper rifles or the heavy machine guns that might give you half a fucking chance to survive. No, sir. You've got a handgun, a two-barreled shotgun, and a machine gun that goes through ammo. Like I said, like you are literally pissing. I am afraid of this game because there's a point that could be soon that I'm basically just going to go, nah, I'm done. I'm out. You can keep it. And then I just have to hope that it comes out, version 1 comes out, and it's a different game, which apparently that happened with Into the Radius 1, or I have to wait for the Quest version of the game, which I know will be easier because that seems to be a thing. Because Into the Radius 1, I played on the Quest first and went, it's freaking awesome. Then I played it on the PC and went, Jesus, this is fucking hard. I don't want to talk negatively about something that people have put a lot of time and effort into. I don't want to be saying, my gun's gone. But I have lost more guns in that game than are in that game. Oh, I've got a spare gun here and I've got a spare gun there and I'm going to keep hold of this one because I might sell it. Oh, this one's my backup gun because I've not got a lot of ammo for my other gun. Where the fuck have all my weapons gone? That's the story of Into the Radius 2, and it pains me to say it. It really does. I'm hoping we'll see another patch. I'm hoping we'll see another update soon, and I'm hoping that if that's the case, it fixes some of the big problems for me personally as a fan of the original. But we shall see. There we go. Trim the fat, people. 1 hour 25 minutes. 1 hour 26 minutes. Honestly, I don't know how I do it. Right, I'm out. I'll catch you guys later. So there you go. What do you think to that? It was long, but was it worth it? Who knows? Not I, said he. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That's enough. That is it. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
You've just listened to another episode of Cookie Cast. Thanks for listening.